They looked like the perfect couple, newly married, madly in love, and ready to begin their forever on a honeymoon in Australia. But within days, only one of them would return home alive. What appeared to be a tragic accident on a cliffside would soon unravel into a web of lies, greed, and betrayal, revealing that sometimes the person who vows to love you forever is the one who plans your death. It began as a story everyone envied. Two souls finally united after years of waiting. Miguel Santos, a 32-year-old engineer from Manila, had always been known as the quiet, dependable type. He met Althea Ramos, a 28-year-old nurse, through mutual friends, and from that moment, their lives became intertwined. Their love had endured the challenges of distance and time. Althea worked long hours at the hospital, while Miguel focused on his overseas projects, saving for their future together. After 3 years apart, they finally tied the knot in a grand wedding filled with laughter, music, and the warmth of family. Every guest saw them as a perfect match, a patient man and a kind woman who shared a dream of building a life abroad. Their honeymoon destination was Australia, a country both had long wanted to visit. Althea gushed to friends about the trip, promising to send endless photos. Miguel appeared equally thrilled, telling relatives it would be the start of a new chapter. They boarded their flight hand in hand, smiling for pictures that would later appear on news broadcasts for a far darker reason. Passengers recalled how attentive Althea was, adjusting Miguel's seatbelt, brushing crumbs from his shirt. It was the picture of affection, or so it seemed. But beneath the surface, something wasn't right. Those closest to them would later recall subtle signs: Miguel's sudden bursts of irritation, Althea's hesitant laughter when he spoke too sharply. Yet, love often blinds those who want to believe. When their plane touched down in Sydney, the couple's story appeared to be one of triumph, a celebration of faith and endurance. No one could have predicted that within a week, one of them would never return home, and the other would be accused of orchestrating the perfect murder. When the newlyweds arrived in Sydney, everything seemed perfect. The airport cameras captured their radiant smiles as they walked hand in hand through the terminal, surrounded by the glow of new beginnings. Miguel held Althea's suitcase while she snapped selfies, eager to document every moment of their honeymoon. They rented a sleek white car and drove toward the Blue Mountains, where a luxury resort awaited them. The journey was scenic, lined with towering eucalyptus trees and misty cliffs that seemed to disappear into the clouds. To outsiders, they looked like any other happy couple chasing adventure and romance. At the resort, they checked into a private suite overlooking a valley that shimmered under the afternoon sun. Althea posted pictures of the view online, captioning them with hearts and words of gratitude. But behind those posts, tension was brewing. Staff later recalled how Miguel barely smiled. His tone clipped whenever Althea asked simple questions. She, on the other hand, seemed anxious, her cheerful energy dimming as the days passed. At dinner, she pushed food around her plate, while Miguel sat silent, scrolling through his phone. Guests noticed their uneasy silence, a sharp contrast to the laughter that usually filled honeymoon tables. At night, muffled voices echoed through the walls of their suite. Some guests described hearing what sounded like arguments, a woman's trembling voice followed by a man's low, restrained tone. No one complained, assuming it was a typical lover's quarrel. But there was something unsettling about the way it kept happening, growing more intense each evening. By the third night, even Althea's posts stopped. The smiles vanished from her feed. The next morning, she was seen walking alone near the cliffside trails, her face pale, her expression distant. Unaware, she was walking toward her final day alive. The morning air in the Blue Mountains was crisp and cold when Miguel appeared at the resort's reception desk, claiming that his wife had gone missing. His voice was steady, almost rehearsed, as he explained that Althea had left early for a walk and never returned. Staff members expected panic, tears, or even desperation, but instead they found calm precision. Miguel said he had searched the nearby trails himself, but there was no sign of her. Concern quickly spread among the hotel employees, and within hours, local police were called to investigate. Authorities began by questioning Miguel about their activities that morning. He claimed they had breakfast together before she left for a solo hike around 8 a.m. But when detectives reviewed surveillance footage, something didn't match. Miguel was seen exiting their suite alone just after sunrise, far earlier than the time he had mentioned. Later footage showed him returning hours before he supposedly realized Althea was missing. His story had cracks, and investigators quietly began to take note. As the day went on, search teams combed through trails and lookout points while helicopters circled overhead. Tourists joined in, hoping to help find the missing woman whose honeymoon had turned to tragedy. Miguel gave interviews to local media, speaking softly about how his heart was broken and how Althea was the love of his life. Yet even during those emotional pleas, his eyes remained dry. Detectives began to notice details others overlooked: a faint scratch on his neck, dirt beneath his nails, and the smell of sweat and fear. What was first thought to be a tragic accident was slowly transforming into something darker. Every hour that passed without finding Althea only deepened the suspicion that Miguel knew far more than he was admitting. Investigators began piecing together Althea's final hours before she disappeared. The timeline built by Miguel didn't add up, and police grew increasingly suspicious of his calm demeanor. CCTV footage from nearby shops revealed Althea leaving the resort alone that morning, dressed casually and smiling faintly as she entered a cafe. The barista later recalled her ordering coffee and writing something in a small notebook, perhaps a letter, perhaps a thought she never got to finish. She appeared peaceful, unaware that she would never make it back. Hours later, another camera picked up Miguel driving their rented SUV away from the resort, heading toward an isolated trailhead known for its steep cliffs. He was alone, though he had told police he stayed behind waiting for her. The car's GPS showed a route deep into the mountains, a route that ended near Govet's Leap, a scenic viewpoint infamous for its dizzying drop. When questioned, Miguel claimed he had gone searching for Althea after she didn't return, but his timeline once again shifted, small inconsistencies forming a web of deceit around him. Police quietly began collecting physical evidence from the SUV. They noticed faint traces of mud on the tires inconsistent with resort grounds and found long strands of hair caught in the back seat, later confirmed to belong to Althea. The pieces were starting to fit together, and detectives now suspected the so-called search trip was something else entirely. Back at the resort, staff members reported how Miguel spent the afternoon pacing in the lobby, watching the entrance more than the mountains. His hands trembled slightly whenever someone mentioned Althea's name. The perfect husband facade was cracking. Behind the gentle smiles and carefully chosen words, something sinister was beginning to emerge, and investigators were finally seeing it. 3 long days passed before a hiker stumbled upon something horrifying at the bottom of a rocky ravine near Govet's Leap lookout. The body of a woman lay motionless among the jagged stones, her clothing torn, her skin bruised and battered. Police were called immediately, and the grim discovery confirmed what many had begun to fear: Althea Ramos was dead. The once picturesque landscape now looked like a crime scene, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and tragedy. Officers sealed off the area while forensic teams worked meticulously, photographing every angle and collecting every fragment of evidence. At first glance, it might have appeared to be a terrible accident, perhaps a misstep on the slippery edge of a cliff. But the injuries told another story. The bruises on Althea's arms were too deliberate, too concentrated, as if someone had gripped her tightly before she fell. There were scratches along her neck and faint defensive wounds on her hands, suggesting she had fought back. Investigators realized quickly that this was no fall, it was a struggle. When Miguel was informed, his reaction stunned everyone. He didn't cry or collapse. He merely closed his eyes and nodded, as if he had been expecting the news. Detectives found his composure unsettling. They noticed fresh marks on his forearms, hidden under his long sleeves, and dirt trapped under his fingernails despite claiming he hadn't left the resort that morning. Questions multiplied while his answers remained vague and rehearsed. The evidence around him was tightening like a noose. The honeymoon had turned into a murder investigation. What began as a romantic getaway was now a national tragedy, and the man who had once promised Althea forever stood at the center of a mystery soaked in lies, greed, and betrayal. As investigators delved deeper into the case, the true motive behind Althea's death began to take shape. What they uncovered painted a chilling picture of calculation and deceit. Financial records showed that Miguel had taken out a massive life insurance policy on his new wife just a few weeks before their wedding, a policy worth nearly $500,000. It named him as the sole beneficiary. At first, friends had thought it was a practical gesture, something couples often did to protect each other's future. But now, that decision looked like the cornerstone of a deadly plan. Detectives traced Miguel's online activity and were stunned to find searches about life insurance payouts, accidental death claims, and cliffside hiking accidents. He had even read articles about how long it takes for missing persons reports to activate overseas. The meticulous detail revealed intent, not panic. When investigators reviewed his financial statements, they discovered mounting credit card debt and a pattern of gambling transactions. Miguel was drowning in losses. The promise of a quick payout suddenly made sense. Witness interviews added more fuel to the theory. Friends recalled how Miguel had recently become distant and irritable, often snapping at Althea during their engagement. One even mentioned overhearing him complain about how marriage is an investment that should pay back. At the time, it was brushed off as a bad joke. Now, it sounded like a confession hiding in plain sight. The puzzle was nearly complete. The money, the lies, the manipulation. Miguel had crafted an image of the devoted husband while quietly laying the groundwork for a murder disguised as tragedy. The honeymoon wasn't an escape of love. It was an execution of greed. And for the first time, detectives saw the full shape of the monster behind the man. Investigators meticulously reconstructed the final hours of Althea's life, piecing together the truth hidden behind Miguel's web of lies. They believed the plan had been set long before they even boarded the plane to Australia. On the morning of her death, Miguel suggested they visit the famous Govet's Leap Lookout, a breathtaking spot that drew tourists with its dramatic cliffs and panoramic views. To Althea, it sounded like a romantic gesture, the perfect place to capture a honeymoon photo. To Miguel, it was the final step in a carefully crafted plan. Detectives theorized that he led her to the edge under the pretense of taking pictures. She stood facing the horizon, smiling against the golden light of morning, while he positioned himself behind her. There was no warning, no chance to react, just one sudden push. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the rush of wind as her body disappeared into the depths below. Then, Miguel calmly returned to the car, his expression void of emotion. He drove back to the resort, cleaned himself up, and waited hours before reporting her missing. But the evidence betrayed him. The GPS on his phone placed him at the exact location of the fall at the time of death. Soil samples from his shoes matched the unique mineral composition of the cliffside. In the back seat of the rented SUV, investigators found one of Althea's earrings, bent and streaked with blood. Each piece of evidence shredded his story of an accidental disappearance. The search for a missing wife had turned into the hunt for a killer. Behind his calm exterior, Miguel's perfect facade crumbled, revealing a man driven not by passion, but by greed, a husband who turned his vows into a death sentence. When authorities finally arrested Miguel, the story sent shockwaves through both Australia and the Philippines. The man who had once stood as a symbol of devotion was now in handcuffs, led quietly into a police bin as cameras flashed around him. He didn't resist, didn't shout. He simply lowered his head and stared blankly ahead, as if his fate no longer mattered. News outlets across 2 countries ran headlines about the honeymoon killer, a term that would follow him for years. In Sydney, Filipino communities gathered in disbelief, struggling to reconcile the image of a kind, smiling man with the accusations now tied to his name. During the pre-trial hearings, Miguel's composure unnerved everyone. He sat motionless as prosecutors detailed how he had betrayed the woman who had trusted him with her life. Witnesses described Althea's gentle nature, her optimism, and her devotion to a marriage she thought was built on love. The courtroom was filled with tension as the prosecution laid out the evidence: the insurance policy, the GPS data, the bruises, and the blood-stained earring. Althea's family flew from Manila, their grief palpable as they sat through each grim detail. Her mother clutched a photograph of her daughter, whispering prayers as tears streamed down her face. When the crime scene photos were shown, the room fell silent. Miguel didn't flinch. His lack of emotion was chilling, as though he had already detached himself from the horror he created. The defense tried to paint him as a man broken by tragedy, insisting the death had been accidental. But the prosecution's case was too strong, too precise. The image of a grieving husband was shattered beyond repair. What once looked like heartbreak now appeared to be nothing more than the mask of a killer. The trial that followed became an international sensation, capturing headlines and dominating talk shows for weeks. Every detail of the case was dissected, from the couple's wedding photos to the chilling timeline of Althea's final moments. The prosecution presented a compelling narrative of deceit and greed, showing how Miguel had orchestrated the entire plan from start to finish. They argued that he had viewed marriage not as a union of love, but as an opportunity for financial gain. Every piece of evidence, from the life insurance policy to the GPS data, was laid before the court like puzzle pieces that formed a picture of premeditated murder. Prosecutors called witnesses who spoke of Althea's growing unease before the trip, her whispered fears that something about Miguel had changed. Experts testified about the bruises on her body, explaining they were not consistent with a fall, but with being grabbed and restrained. The defense countered with desperation, claiming that Althea's death was an accident, a slip on wet rocks during an argument gone wrong. But the science was irrefutable. Soil from Miguel's shoes matched the cliff's edge. His phone location aligned with the exact moment she fell. The earring found in the SUV sealed the narrative of guilt. As the closing arguments ended, the courtroom was thick with tension. Althea's family sat silently, holding hands, while Miguel remained expressionless. When the jury returned after 5 short hours, their verdict was clear: guilty of murder. A heavy silence followed, broken only by the sound of Althea's mother's sobs. Miguel showed no reaction as the judge pronounced a life sentence without parole. Cameras flashed as he was led away, his face frozen and unreadable. The man who once promised forever had turned that promise into a lifetime of darkness. Years later, the story of Miguel and Althea Santos continues to haunt those who remember it. The cliffs of the Blue Mountains, once a symbol of natural beauty, became forever linked to a tale of love turned lethal. Tourists who visit the lookout still pause in silence, some leaving flowers near the edge in memory of the young nurse whose dream honeymoon ended in tragedy. Her name has become a quiet warning whispered among travelers, a reminder that even the happiest beginnings can hide the darkest truths. In Manila, Althea's family has never fully recovered. Her parents transformed their grief into action, founding a small organization that helps victims of domestic abuse and emotional manipulation. They speak openly about her story, urging others to recognize red flags before it's too late. Every year on her birthday, they hold a candlelight vigil where friends and strangers gather to remember the woman whose kindness touched so many lives. Her absence lingers in every photograph, every unfinished dream. Miguel remains behind bars in a maximum security prison in New South Wales. Those who've seen him say he spends his days in silence, rarely speaking, often staring at the walls of his cell. Despite the overwhelming evidence, he continues to proclaim his innocence, sending letters to journalists claiming he was wrongly accused. But the world has long stopped believing his words. The case has become a cautionary tale, a story of betrayal hidden behind the mask of devotion. Investigators who worked on it still describe it as one of the most chilling cases they ever handled. What began as a honeymoon meant to celebrate love became a descent into horror, ending not with vows of forever, but with the cold echo of loss and the shadow of deceit.